Welcome to the Mobile Workforce Podcast, where we sit down and have real conversations with business leaders that have been where you are. During these interviews, we'll dive into what it takes to improve systems and champion processes that maximize performance. Each week, our trailblazing guests share their experiences and understanding of the workforce to help inspire change, challenge our thinking, and share what it takes to successfully travel the road to profitability. Now here's our host, co-founder and chief evangelist of About Time and WorkMax, Mike Merrill.
Hello and welcome to the Mobile Workforce Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Merrill, and today we are sitting down again with Ethan and Brooke Redden, the president and vice president of Redden Concrete, who is a turnkey commercial concrete contractor serving the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So if you haven't listened to the last episode where Brooke and Ethan joined us and we discussed a little bit about their backstory, how they built their business, and some of those wonderful experiences of growing up in construction together and building a company. We highly recommend you check that out. But this week, we're going to talk about something a little bit different. We're going to talk more about how they have come to learn how to work with family, some of the challenges and struggles that they've worked through to grow this business to what it is today. They're up to 350 plus employees, and in the very beginning, it was just those two and a couple of helpers. So thank you again for joining us today, Ethan and Brooke. We look forward to the discussion today.
We look forward to it too.
Does that, Ethan, does that mean you're looking forward to it also?
Absolutely.
Sweet. Okay, cool. Well, glad to have you both on. This is a lot of fun and a different dynamic, and we've really enjoyed having these conversations with you. So let's just talk about, to start off, how the two of you really started to get to the company you have today, where you were just a couple of crew members and yourselves in the beginning.
I guess it started way back when in the hills of Missouri, in the Ozarks, when I was squeezing teats back in the 90s.
Okay.
No, that was just a joke. I'm going to let Brooke take this one.
Like you were milking cows or goats or?
Yes,
okay.
Cows, lots of cows.
All right. So, all right, we'll edit this all out, but go ahead and answer when you're ready, when we're done talking about the Ozark series.
Yeah. He probably wants to add that at some point because he did used to milk cows way back when he was younger, before concrete. But
I knew that because I shook his hand, and that's what I said. What, you been milking cows? And the answer was yes. So can you give us a brief overview of how you grew from just the two of you in the beginning to where the business is today?
Yes. The long and short of that is lots of trial and error. We hired great people. We hired some bad people. We made bad choices. We learned a lot from those choices, which helped us grow into making better choices. And honestly, we just never gave up, even during the toughest times, when we thought, how can we do this? How can we move forward from this? How are we going to do this in general? And we just never gave up. We always sat down together, talked through everything, just tried to figure out how we can grow, how we can do this, how we can make this a dream company. And it seemed like every day there would be a new idea that would come to us, and we would just put it into fruition. And before we knew it, a few years had passed, and we were really getting into it and really going with concrete. And then suddenly more people came along, more trial and error. And the next thing we know, we hit another growth spurt and another growth spurt and just continued to grow. And the growth became really, really good. And that's where we decided that we were in a good spot. And that's where we are today.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned, Brooke, that you started out by making a lot of bad decisions or mistakes. Obviously not intentionally bad, but we look at companies that are successful today, and some people think, wow, where did they come from? Or, they don't see those struggle years, those things that you worked through. But I appreciate you being raw and honest and saying, we made a lot of mistakes, but the key being, from what I'm hearing, is that you learned from those and you iterated and you improved slowly but surely. And like you said, eventually, all of a sudden, it just started working and you grew. Is that right?
That's correct.
How about you, Ethan? As far as I know, working with family, especially your spouse, every day, I mean, that's got to bring challenges and things that you have to work through both personally and professionally to balance that. How has that been, and what have you both done to try and make that better and help you to grow stronger as opposed to causing contention and conflict?
Brooke, Brooke has always been my biggest fan and support, my rock, and also my sandpaper, to where, she's been my abrasive that I've needed to help hone me and hone this business to what it is. Because of my background, obviously I came from being able to do construction physically, learn it that way. I can communicate and I can speak, but some of this stuff is not my forte. The whole back office, implementing policy and procedure for the office, I really don't want to mess with it too much. Brooke has been the driving force for everything that we've done pretty much from a back office standpoint. The development that we've had is just as much due to Brooke as it is to me, because we make a good team, because I know how to build something. If you ask me, how am I going to build this? I'm going to figure out a way to get it built. And that's where I excel, and that's what I like to do, right? How are we going to create this here? I can do that. Now, when I do all that, there is a whole lot of everything, where it be paperwork and accounting and just everyday office operations that has to happen in order for that to be followed up and the whole process to be fluid. Brooke sees through all the follow-up, make sure that we're fluid. Me and Brooke as a whole, as working together, we mesh really well. It has strengthened our relationship as to where some people couldn't work with their spouse. I can, because I value Brooke more than just my spouse, right? I respect her more than just my spouse. I respect her professionally. I value her opinion professionally. She is my equal. And it just so happens that we were attracted to one another, right? What luck. So, I feel like in a way I hit the lottery with that, because sometimes I look back and I think, man, what if I wouldn't have ran into Brooke? What if I wouldn't have met Brooke? Where would I be today? And, I'm not sure the company would be here. I'm not sure I would be here if it weren't for Brooke being with me and us, beating this path and pioneering this thing together. We make it work, and I wouldn't want it any other way.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I love that. I know I mentioned on the last episode, I mean, you talked about building that bridge and you didn't know how you were going to do it. And Brooke had faith in you that you were going to figure it out. and she just cheered you on and believed in you, and now you've got this cool bridge that you can show your children and eventually your grandchildren, and it's going to be there a long time. And so I think what you've built together as a business is really admirable. I mean, we work with companies from everywhere. I mean, thousands of companies, and most of them don't have what you all have in many ways. It's really cool. I was there and visited your office as well. And that really leads into something else. I mean, it's not just you and Brooke, but you've got other family members working there as well. And to watch how you balance that, even in just a couple-hour visit that I was able to enjoy, I could feel that family feel. I have a hunch that your employees even feel like it's a big family too. So, what do you do to help foster and really allow that to flourish like you have, to work with family and to create a culture like that together?
When you talk about working with family, I'm not sure exactly uh, who in particular you're talking about. We actually have people up here that we consider family. Uh, I've known some of the people that work up here with us for quite some time, and I definitely consider them family. And I care about them outside of this atmosphere. Um, and we have the strength of a family because our relationships, we've honed them, just as I've said before, it's not just about getting along. It's not just about agreeing. It's not just about the good times. That's weak. Adversity, challenges, issues, opportunities, call them what you will, the hard times, disagreements. That is what creates character and depth of a relationship. And we have that up here, and we've created that up here with some of our people. And I would say we have that more so with some of these individuals up here than we do with our actual family members. We consider a lot of the people up here that help us with this our family.
Oh, that's awesome. So tell me this: do you all have some rules or guidelines that govern how you handle certain situations where maybe some of them are written, maybe they're unwritten? Are there some principles that have helped you to navigate business every day and keep that strength with your work family?
We definitely try to be honest in everything that we do, and have integrity in our everyday operations and the decisions that we make. We like to do a lot of face-to-face when there is an issue, right? Talk about it, get in front of it. We also try to show everyone up here that if we make a mistake, we own it, and we own it in front of everybody. It's not, we don't get any free passes, Brooke and I. We hold ourselves just as accountable as we hold our employees. And if there ever is a time that we have to say, that was my mistake, or I apologize, or I shouldn't have done that, or you know what, you were right in that and I was wrong. Those words and conversations are had because we want everyone to know that we don't view ourselves or our opinions any more. We don't hold that in any higher regard than any of our people up here. If they have an opinion on it, we want to hear it. We can discuss it. We may hate it. We may love it, right? But that's the way it works. And we ask a lot of questions. And something that my father told me, used to hammer this in me and my brother as children, is that God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth so you could listen twice as much as you speak. Right? So I actually try to do that. I try to be quick to listen and slow to speak. At times that is very difficult, but that just helps me hone my patience, but that's in a sense of how we operate up here and interact with our employees.
Yeah, that's unique. And back to your comment about Brooke sometimes being your sandpaper. I love that. I need to remember that one. So I hope you don't mind if I borrow it here and there.
No, that's fine. She's definitely my 60 grit for sure.
I love it. Well, that's cool. But it sounds to me like, Ethan, like you feel like, and I'm sure Brooke, you're the same. You feel like that's okay if your employees and your work family are sandpaper too, because sometimes you got a rough spot and you need a little smoothing out, and you're okay to own that. Is that making sense to you?
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
agree. For us up here, I feel like our culture is very open communication, and inserting your strengths where your strengths are needed in the business, because Ethan has many strengths that I don't have, and vice versa. I have many strengths that he has. And when we both put those into our company and we feel that same feedback from our employees, everything just goes the right way.
Well, and you mentioned the word equals, Ethan, and I love that for a lot of reasons. I've been reading a couple books by Jocko Willink. He's a pretty well-known Navy SEAL, was the leader of SEAL Team 3, and actually just met him at an archery shoot a couple days ago up in Montana. Super fun, really cool to finally meet him in person. Someone that I have a great deal of respect for. And a lot of what you're saying sounds a great deal like the approach that he took as a SEAL team leader. And in those cases, I mean, there's lives on the line. I mean, it's a big deal. It's life or death. It's not just business or money. But he consults with companies, and he basically shares the same thing. He says, whether it's life or death or not, like we need to treat each other with great respect, and be a leader by listening, like you're mentioning. So I just a lot of what you're sharing, both of you, really speaks to me in terms of one word, and that's integrity, which I think, if I were to ask you, what's your number one secret to success? I mean, that's got to be somewhere in there. Do any other words come to mind as guiding principles or mission statements, or what are your thoughts there?
Integrity, intensity, intelligence.
Okay.
It's true. It's damn true.
The 3 eyes.
This guy.
Only wrestling fans will get
it. That's funny. You got 2 ears, 1 mouth, and 3 eyes. Oh wait, no, that's something else.
We're aliens.
But you know the 3 eyes, obviously.
Yeah.
Man, awesome. Loved watching Kurt Angle. My dad loved his character. It was great. Just good memories.
He's a good wrestler.
There you go. Yeah, and that's the other thing. Clearly, I think the listeners can feel this. I hope they can. But you guys have a lot of fun too. I think that's a secret to. I mean, you tease each other and you're playful, but you're serious and you know how to get stuff done, right? When it's time to work, Ethan's head down and working, right? And Brooke, you're just there orchestrating. And again, I saw this firsthand, what you're doing in the office, and you're running a tight ship. And Ethan knows that stuff squared away, And you also know he's out there getting it done in the field. And so I think that yin and yang approach, and it doesn't have to be spouses running a business that are experiencing this. This could be a partnership, or this could be an owner with their, director of operations, or, different roles. You can insert whatever you want. The point here is you got teamwork and people working together and people that have each other's back, but at the same time, people that are being humble and open to ideas and listening. So just so many great takeaways here for, I think, business principles for all of us, me included here. Are there, I mentioned guiding principles, or do you as a company have, do you have a mission statement, or do you have a mantra? Do you have something that guides you, or is this just intangibles and things that everybody knows that's on the team?
No, we don't really have any mission statement or saying or anything flashy. That's not really us. We've worked with some people who have that, and it's a little bit comical to us.
Sure. Okay.
Because a lot of times it is, wow, look at this business card with this nice little motto or statement on here. And then the people, when you really get to know them, are just exact opposite of what they put out there. And, if I was asked, is this something we want to do or do, I would probably pass on that, right? Because that's kind of the taste I have in my mouth about that. There's people can say flashy things, they can print flashy things, but in the day-to-day operations, do they really operate like that? Is that really their method of operation, or is it just words?
So I'm hearing you let your work speak for itself. Look at the fruits of our labors, and that's who we are.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. Honesty's good. You don't have to have a flashy mantra or things on the wall, or, the marketing, so to speak, right? Which I love that too. I think that's fantastic. And I think, there are businesses that have found that thing, and they find it useful for their team to have something to guide them. But I love that. It sounds like just your life's work is what speaks for itself, and the people that are on your team know that, and they subscribe to it, and you guys are all moving in the same direction, that's the goal of any of those things, right? It's just how do we get unified? And it sounds like you all have found a recipe to do that there in the DFW area, which is fantastic. So this has me curious also, what role has technology played in growing this business, and also maintaining these same principles of integrity and having this accountability, as well as better communication, so that you can be efficient with running your business day to day?
Technology has played a huge role in how we have progressed as a company as a whole. I remember back when we very first started that the only accounting system that I knew was QuickBooks. And QuickBooks has great things, but when you're running a company that's now the size that our company is today, QuickBooks does not work for that. You have to have a more in-depth computer accounting system, whatever the case may be. You just have to have something that's way more in-depth, that brings more capabilities to your company. And so I remember handwriting checks and actually keeping an Excel spreadsheet of our books for quite a while, actually, and trying to put those into QuickBooks, doing all the payroll myself, things of that sort. There was literally a day where I did all aspects of the back end of the business by myself. And I started to realize that obviously this is not sustainable. I can't keep this forever. I can't continue doing this, especially with the growth that we were experiencing and the people that were coming on. And fortunately for us, there's salespeople out there that have lots of different technological products that like to bring them to my attention. And so while some of those emails become redundant and I don't necessarily need them, I'm thankful for those emails from these salespeople, because without those, we wouldn't be where we are today with technology. And so cue the technology boom that we've been in for the last decade, I felt it necessary to take full advantage of it. And I started trying new things. Some things that worked really, really well, others that did not. It's all about trial and error when it comes to that. We tried to make our timesheets more accessible online and things of that sort, but there just wasn't really a good way to do that with the computer program that we use. And so that's when we started reaching out and trying to find different avenues. And fortunately for us, several years ago, that's when we came across WorkMax, and it's created major production in the field as far as being able to clock in and have the facial recognition and all of that stuff, but also with the forms side of it. Just that in of itself, and being able to put these forms in front of the guys so that they can communicate with the office nearly instantaneously, has been a huge game changer for us. You've got programs out there that load the plans on there, so the guys just simply have an iPad in front of them. They're able to zoom into their plans. They can click, take pictures, make notes, do daily reports, and all of that is immediately accessible. And for me, for my opinion of technology in general, I love it way more than Ethan does. And I say that with laughing, because one of the jokes of the office, because you know we have jokes with each other, one of the jokes of the office is how obsessed I am with technology and how old school Ethan is when it comes to technology, and doesn't necessarily like technology, but he knows that it's necessary. And so it's kind of a funny aspect of us in our business and our relationship, for that matter, because he even gets mad when I put the digital push button just to unlock the front door at our own home. So he just thinks all of that stuff is so ridiculous, you know, the stuff in the cars and things like that. But it's fun, and it's a funny thing to make fun of. But at the end of the day, our business would not have progressed and advanced the way that it has without technology. And that speaks from the field as well, because if you think about the instruments that they use now that are satellite driven, that give us layouts and things of that sort in order to even construct anything, those have even advanced tremendously in the field. And now you've got screed operations that run off of computers and things like that. So for me, and way deep down in him, I truly believe that technology has been a huge factor in advancing Redden Concrete as a whole.
Wow, that's really inspiring to hear. And you know, kudos to both of you. I mean, kudos to you, Ethan, for having patience with the technology, because, you know, I can understand. I'm a blue collar guy myself, come from the field, and, you know, gritty, get dirty, dig deep, get in there, muscle it, make it happen, kind of guy, like I feel like you probably are. And yet you've got that counterbalance with Brooke there in the office, making sure that, you know, your concrete business is a lot more than just laying mud down. There's just so much else that has to happen so that you could pour again tomorrow, and there's money to make payroll. And you have people that want to stick around because they feel comfortable and safe that they're going to be able to feed their family this month and next year, because you guys are going to be around. And so I think it's just fantastic that you all have found a way to work together and approach this from different angles and leverage the best that you both have to offer this partnership and this relationship as co-owners of your business. So what are your thoughts on that, Ethan? And I mean, now it's time for your rebuttal. any pushback for Brooks teasing you?
No. She's she's right in a sense. I would still have my Motorola Tundra flip phone, probably. I love that thing. I was at one point the only 20-something-year-old with one of them, and I had the little case I'd carry on my hip, and I probably looked like a nerd, but I loved it. And everybody else had, iPhones and this and that and the other, which I have an iPhone now. Technology has definitely sped up the game. Just response time, the flow of information has enabled for you building a elementary school in 18 months to 12 months now, because technology has driven the flow of information. There are certain aspects of technology that I love. Brooke had mentioned a few of them. There are some of them that, I'm not as savvy on, that Brooke handles. Her little dig at me was more along the lines of, I like buttons and knobs, right? I want to be able to turn it or push it, right? I can do it. Captain Hook could do it, right?
So that's funny.
Bucky LaGrange could do it. There's definitely an advantage to buttons and knobs, and I'm just a button and knob type of guy. And Brooke wants to have the most technology-driven everything there is. I think there was a commercial on TV the other day, and I had teased her about it. It came on, and it was a
Sprite commercial.
No, it was not. It was some sort of drink commercial. It was a tea commercial, and they had a smart house and smart door, and the person was trying to get in their house and was, it was some voice activated, whatever, unlock my door, let me in my house. And it wasn't working. And it was very infomercial type acting on it, and was like, did you say, unlock your blouse? And it's just Brooke wants, if there is something out there that can do that, she's very interested in that. I'm like, sure. Give me a doorknob. give me a key, right? I'm good.
Right. Yeah.
So there are some things definitely that we have implemented here that have been Brooke's sole decision and have paid off so much and have benefited this company so much. And I probably would have been reluctant or not wanting to talk to the person or even hear about it. But because of her, we are up to date and we are progressive in that field because of her. And it's definitely a good thing.
Yeah, I think the really nice thing about this conversation is I think most businesses can relate. There are people in both camps that are the button and knob guy or gal that, like the paper and like to physically have things. And then I think there's, those that are more technologically driven and interested in the innovation and the technical and those efficiencies that can be enjoyed. But I mean, a balance is good, but yeah, obviously this works for your business. And I think the key here is that Ethan, you have that trust with Brooke that she's going to invest in those things that are going to work and that are going to help you be better. And I actually keyed in, Brooke, on what you said earlier. You have to try different things. So everything's not always going to work out on technology. Some of the stuff's not going to do what you want and not going to be like you thought. But in failing with that process, you're learning what you really have to have and what's got to work. And I think that just gets you closer to finding that ultimate decision that really is going to provide what you're looking for. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think the lesson or takeaway would be, don't be afraid to try some different things to make sure that you slowly iterate and move the direction you need to move. And eventually you'll find that solution that makes sense. And then on the other side, on Ethan's end of the spectrum and approach, Obviously, Ethan has the patience to make sure that there's latitude so that when you guys come to a decision together, whether Brooke, you're wholly committed on it and he's trusting you, or maybe some of these things make sense to him. And as long as he doesn't have to deal with them and someone else can manage it, he's good, right?
Pretty much. That's exactly right.
Awesome. Well, it's working well for you as a team and as an organization. It's really, like I said, inspiring to see and be a part of it and have the opportunity to work with your organization that is progressive while at the same time pretty down to earth, deep rooted, feet on the ground type of people as well. It's a nice mix. Obviously, you all have found a recipe to be successful working with family, and I know there's a lot of companies out there that don't seem to figure this out, that maybe struggle through it and don't really have a pleasant experience or success. If you've ever seen that before, friends or other companies that you're aware of that struggle with this, what's the thought you have when you're thinking, oh, if they would just approach it this way, or if they would just, maybe manage it that way, they might not have these struggles they're having. Is any advice you could give?
I would say that making sure that your lines of communication are straight and narrow. I think that's one of the biggest issues and one of the biggest challenges that companies, especially companies that have family members in the company or husband and wife, is that oftentimes the communication lines are rigid and they are not clear. And when you can't communicate openly with either your spouse or another family member, there becomes a clouded view of expectations. And when those expectations become clouded, then things go wrong. And then you don't really know where to begin on where it started, whose fault it was. And nobody wants to play the blame game whenever you're speaking about family. That becomes difficult territory. And so I would say that staying in your lane is very important, and always communicating very openly and very well, because obviously not every person is going to have the same title in a business, especially when it comes to family. If family is involved in it, and in our case, husband and wife, I know that he's the president of this company, and I know that I'm the vice president of this company. I know that the ultimate end all always lies within him. I can only ever be the person that says, hey, I think we should do it this way, but ultimately I need you to make that decision. And I recognize that, and I appreciate that to the extent that we can always come together and agree on things and move forward with whatever changes, whatever growth, whatever things that we need to do in the business to make things happen. Because I assure you, we have dealt with many, many, many challenges. Challenges that from an outsider looking in would say, man, I just don't know how they work together. But at the end of the day, Ethan and I are very gifted in communication. Sometimes getting to that final point of communication can be super rocky, and maybe we don't take the right turns. He loves back roads. He likes to always take the back roads to communication. But when we do finally come together, it's very amicable and it's very peaceful when we finally come to a solution together. And I think that's what the ultimate goal of any person or people that are involved in a company that live in the same household always look for, is the best resolution. And that's one of the best things that him and I come to, is resolutions. And it's like that aha moment. And that's one of my favorite things about us being in business together, is when we regroup and we're like, that's the best idea, and we're both on board. It's just like this smile and this sense of relief comes over us, and that's one of my favorite parts.
Well stated. What about you, Ethan? How do you feel about that?
So I think she just threw that out there because I actually physically love to take the back roads anywhere we go.
Perfect.
I'm pretty direct in actual verbal conversations.
He absolutely
to the point to where people tell me you're too direct. But being direct is very important because that cuts out a lot of variables. I don't necessarily struggle with Brooke in this regard at all, really, but I would say that my advice to others would be, if they're having trouble communicating to anyone in any aspect of their business, is to get over it and do it, because tough words are necessary. Tough subjects are necessary. Tough conversations are necessary. What you do not want is something to fester. You do not want to build resentment, because that is a cancer. That is terrible. And it will eat you, the relationship, the future, and the other person up completely that you may be having an issue with. So being very direct and confronting an issue immediately after you have time to process it and think about it, and then always confide in someone you trust, like you really trust, that they know your true self, that you can be candid with. If you're having trouble with any type of issue, you need to have that. And in my case, that's Brooke. Personally, professionally, we're able to work through so many things and so many items in every aspect. And I think because we exercise that so much, that helps us be able to exercise that daily with others, because we can already have it worked out and bounce off of each other and play devil's advocate with one another, and try to instill that empathy that is needed or sometimes overlooked in conversations or in issues. So we just have a lot of practice, and practice makes perfect. And we practice every day, and one of these days, maybe we'll be perfect, maybe not, but we are edging that way slowly and surely.
Yeah, that's awesome. So being direct, I think, is a gift to do it in the right way. And I think you've built the trust with your staff and with each other that they understand when you're being direct, you're just trying to share exactly what needs to happen. And so I think the fact that you're not afraid to do that, but at the same time, it doesn't sound like people feel like the relationship is at risk, or that there's going to be a problem when you're just telling them how it is. When you need something done, it just needs to be done. I mean, you can talk about it all day long, but there's still work to do. And I think, again, back to so many other things that we've discussed together. I mean, clearly you all have a really nice balance to cover both sides of the spectrum. And obviously it's made for a profitable and a successful and a thriving business, which is fantastic. I think that's what everybody listening to this podcast wants. That's their goal. How do I be more successful in business, whether it's their business or not, whether they work for a business and they want to help grow that opportunity for themselves and for their family, or just to, again, just feel like they're truly contributing what they have to offer to bring value, so that, again, they can take better care of their family. So much great information on this discussion. We've really loved having you both. I guess just to wrap up, I'd love to just ask each of you, maybe Brooke, we could start with you. What do you think is the greatest lesson you've learned in your journey so far in building and creating and running this business every day?
I wouldn't necessarily say the biggest lesson that I've learned, but something that I have learned to be more of is patient. Patience can take you to new heights in how you are professionally. And that is because you are dealing with so many different types of people when you become a company this size. And when you learn how to take a step back and understand people and have patience and maybe what they're trying to express, it helps you learn a lot about the people that are working for you. And in saying that, I feel like I've learned so much about people in general. I've become a more confident person in speaking to employees, in dealing with issues with employees, in complimenting employees, and then most importantly, in trusting employees. Because as I mentioned earlier, when we started this, I did everything in this office. I didn't let anybody touch anything. I didn't have the trust in anybody that they knew how to do it or that they were going to do it how I wanted. And that has created the ability for me to, number one, have patience in those people, and then also learn how to trust them so that I can free myself a little bit so we can grow in other aspects of the business. But without acquiring more patience and understanding of people, I don't think I ever would have allowed myself to get to that point to allow us to grow and put myself in other areas in the business where we needed the growth in order to bring on more technology or bring on new aspects or protocols of the business, or help Ethan grow when he has an idea and, oh, well, here's some input on that or whatever. But ultimately, it's taken a lot of patience. So over the years, I wouldn't necessarily say there was any lessons because, like I said, we made many, many mistakes, and I've learned from each of those mistakes, but I would never want to take those mistakes away, because that is what helped us grow into what we are today. And so I'm thankful for those mistakes, but those are just simple lessons. But learning how to have that amount of patience, I think, has grown me tremendously as a businesswoman, as a wife, and most definitely as a mother.
Sure. That's great. I love that. Well, they say patience is a virtue, and it really is. So
Absolutely.
good for you. I think that serves us in our life in every way, not just in business, right? Like you mentioned. Awesome. Well, so how about you, Ethan? What are your thoughts? What's the greatest lesson you've learned, or something that a realization you've come to that you feel has been one of the most impactful so far in this business journey?
I would say similar to what Brooke was saying, and more of a realization than anything. Patience is, I've learned so much more patience than I had when I first started. I've had to, whether I wanted to learn it or it was forced learned upon me, trusting in people, right? You've got to trust in people and trust the process as well, because they will fail just like you have failed, and you have to know that, and you have to be willing to accept that. You just need to know how wide to set those bumpers, and then I would say fishing, not necessarily in a let's go fishing for some bass, right? I'm talking about fishing for information. A lot of times, people are not willing to talk. People are not willing to voice their opinion or talk about a subject that may be tough to talk about, And I feel like if you can somehow open yourself up, show a little bit of vulnerability, and fish for information, and fish for opinion, and fish for whatever it is that you're needing at that time, whether that be, I want an opinion on this matter. I want to know how you feel about this. I want to know your thoughts on this process that I'm going to implement, right? Just because someone is a president or a vice president somewhere that doesn't mean that they know everything or they have all the answers. And a lot of times just simple titles like that can be intimidating to some people, intimidating so much so that they won't speak, they won't tell you, they won't open up. And I feel like if you fish a little bit that will help you and them both. Typically, it'll help the overall process of whatever you're trying to figure out. And it also typically will boost their morale and their confidence, which in the end is only going to benefit everyone. So,
Love that.
That's all I got to say about that.
let them become a part of that process and buy in and feel like they're involved and a part of what you're doing. And yeah, absolutely. Just so much great information. Thank you so much, Brooke and Ethan, for being generous with your time and being vulnerable and willing to share a bit more of your story. So interesting. I can't wait to share these with my wife too. She'll really enjoy learning who I have the blessing to work with and the types of companies that we care so much about and that we just appreciate the opportunity to work with. I guess as far as the next opportunity, who knows? Hopefully we have a chance to do this again down the road a little ways. We'll give you guys some breathing room to get back to business. And again, just thanks so much for joining us. We've really had a great time.
Thank you so much for having us. We appreciate it. It's been really fun.
You bet. And we'll look forward to connecting up next time I'm down in your neck of the woods, or maybe we'll have to get you out here for an archery shoot sometime.
Sounds good.
Okay. Take care.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you for joining us today on the Mobile Workforce Podcast, sponsored by About Time Technologies and WorkMax. If you liked the conversation we had today, or were able to learn anything new or helpful, please make sure to follow us on our WorkMax page on LinkedIn and on Instagram at WorkMax_. And subscribe to the show on iTunes or your preferred podcast platform so you will never miss another insightful episode. Also, if you enjoyed the podcast, please leave us a 5-star rating and review and share the show with your friends and colleagues. Your support means the world to us and will allow us to continue providing impactful information with others looking to improve their results in their business and, in turn, their life.